Okay. Today I'm at Chepstow Racecourse with Paul Ferguson. Thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us today, Paul. Now you're on the 13th edition of your book, Jumpers to Follow. What initially gave you the spark and made you decide that this type of book was something that is needed and would sell?
Well, whether it was needed or not, there was plenty out there at the time, but it was something, as a kid growing up, being a racing fan, it was something that I always enjoyed reading myself, especially this, we're talking now at the start of the season, this time of year, when the jump season is really getting going. I'm more national hunt based myself, and it was something that I always enjoyed reading, and I always thought that I had the capabilities of putting something together, so that's how it came about, really.
And is there anything in yours that the previous ones didn't do that you thought you could have improved on?
I've changed it over the years, certainly. If you're looking at how it started 13 years ago, even before that, I actually wrote a paperback National Hunt Guide, they called it, and I sold it here, actually, Chepstow, at this meeting. That was the very first dipping my toe in the water, as it were. But it has progressed massively, and more so in the past 4 years since Weatherbys' involvement. Just the actual looking at the product now, from in terms of, I think mine's a little potentially easier on the eye than some of them. The way it's laid out, almost my 40 horses in almost like a race card format with the colours and silks.
So how much work goes into it, and how much travelling do you have to do? Do you go to the yards?
Not necessarily always for the yards. That's a bit of a misconception. A lot of people think the around the yard section of the book is stable tours, which it isn't. It's my personal view of, I think there's 59 yards in there this year, but most of that's done by phone and email. But I tend to do a lot more travelling around during the year and during the season itself when the racing's on. I have just come from John Joe's yard this morning. I like to see them once they're in the work and things, but I'll keep in contact with them. There's a lot of to-ing and fro-ing between the trainers, but a lot of them nowadays are great communication-wise. They're really happy. I say especially some of the younger trainers like the fact that their horses are flagged up and things. It's a lot more promotion for them.
Okay, so before we talk more about the book, which we will do later on, what sparked your interest in racing in the first place?
I suppose it's probably a similar story to many, really. It's a bit of a family tradition. My dad's a racing fan, not so much. He's probably more so now since I've got involved in it more. But it was my granddad, really. As I like growing up, I'm a big Everton fan. If I wasn't at the match on a Saturday, I was sat with my granddad watching the racing, and it went from there. Really, I was hooked on it. First time I remember going to Aintree for the Grand National meeting. Obviously, being a local. On the Thursday, and even back in them days it wasn't nowhere near on the scale it is now, that meeting, but I was hooked pretty much from the word go. And were
you hooked on the racing or the betting originally?
No, both the racing, I just enjoyed watching it. I did, obviously, even as a kid I had a small interest bet, but I just loved the sport, to be honest.
Now, I understand you left school at 16. There's quite a few people leave leave schools at 16, but basically blatant non-triers. So, why did you leave school at 16, or did you go straight into racing?
No, I didn't go straight into racing. I couldn't wait to get out of there, if the truth be told, which I wouldn't tell my 7-year-old son now. I'll gloss over that when he's ready for advice of whether he should stay on and things. No, at the time I just had enough, to be honest, of school, and I didn't really want to go in. Got the opportunity to work in an office in Liverpool city centre, which I did for several years. So I was quick to leave.
And what was that doing?
I was within a pensions company. Started off working in pensions, worked my way up, and I was working with it at the time I left, which I was still doing that part time until a couple of years ago. At the time I left, I was working with the actuaries, so basically facts and figures.
So you've always been interested in that, sort of worked itself across to racing. You're doing that in tandem.
I suppose you would say that. Yeah, maths has always been something I've been interested in, and the job I was doing was statistics based as well. So you could say that. Although I did spend most of my time on my phone, looking at entries and things, and not doing what I should have been doing.
So what was your first foray into actually producing stuff for racing?
The very first piece that I had published was in the Haydock Park race card. I think it was May 2004. I'd done an interview with Martin Dwyer, and how that came about was I got talking to Charlie McCann, who has been in various roles over the years, latterly at Bet Victor over in Gibraltar. At the time he was working for Littlewood's Bet Direct, who were based in Liverpool. I met Charlie at the Cheltenham Festival preview evening at Haydock. Got talking and with himself, and then he introduced me to Russ Wiseman, who then took over from him. The pair of them sort of took me under the wing, more so Charlie at the time, and he took me racing a few times. Then they had me up as a guest speaker in boxes and things, and he knew someone at the racecourse, and he thought it'd be a good thing to have a local writer writing about local features. So that was how Martin Dwyer came about as being my first interviewee.
Okay, so you've gone from being a man of figures to a man of letters. Why did you suddenly decide to go into writing?
Well, I say it was the book that I always wanted to do. I always wanted to write, and once I started, when Charlie's first advice was just get something published. So there was a magazine at the time as well called Pacemaker. I think it was called, and
that's a breeding magazine.
Yeah, breeding magazine. Yeah, I wrote a piece for them, and then I wrote that one piece for Haydock, which then became a regular feature with basing it around local, either jockeys or it wasn't even so much jockeys. Sometimes it was horses and things, and one thing and another. I wrote for Haydock about 18 months, I think, for every meeting, even on the flat season, which was a good starting point. And then, as you well know, we know each other through Racing Ahead, who haven't both written for them for many years now. And as that came about, just as that was being launched, I got in touch with them and said I was starting out. This was the kind of road I wanted to go down. I had a meeting with the guy who happened to be from Liverpool. I think he took a shine to me and gave me a chance, and then there you go.
And you're still writing for Racing Ahead now?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
So, talking about the book again, how do you go about compiling a book like this? I mean, there's all the thousands of horses that you've got in training. How do you get it down to the few that you come up with?
Well, the book comprises of various different sections. As I say, that the around the yard section is my opinion, so they're all my horses as well. But to get it down to the 40 leading prospects, which is the main, I'd say that was the main focal point of the book, the first main chunk section. It's a case of process of elimination, really. I'll have a list. I'll start compiling a list now throughout this season for next year. And it's mainly bumper horses coming through. Or I think this year of the 40, I think 23 of them were from bumpers last year, and they'll now be graduating over hurdles for the first time. It's that kind of thing. That's what it's focused on, more the young up-and-coming horses that have got the future ahead of them. But in terms of actually whittling it down, I say it is a process of elimination, and then even at some point I might end up thinking I've got 10 staying novice chasers, so I don't really want that, because I'll always try and keep track of the level stakes profit of the selection, so you don't really want the horses clashing with each other in the same division if it's all possible.
Okay, so is that part of the attraction for national racing, that these horses are going to be around for several years, so you can follow their careers through?
Yeah, certainly, definitely, and that's one thing I'd say to people who buy the book. It's not just really, so with most of my horses being young horses, it's not really just for this season, because they'll go on and beyond. There'll be horses I've touched upon, which you might go and win 1 or 2 novice hurdles this year, but they might flourish in a year or two's time when you go over fences. And
you sometimes get the suspicion that there's a trainer keeping one under wraps that they're not going to tell you about. You try and prize them out of them.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I try. That's why I don't do too many interviews while I'm writing it. To be honest, I do try and keep the opinion to my own. I do like them to be more my what I've seen from my own eyes rather than opinion of other people. So that's another one of the reasons why I try and do me visiting afterwards. And I will speak to the trainers, obviously, to check horses' well-being and things, and the back in training, this, that and the other before we go to publication. But it is that is one of the reasons why I do try and keep it to my own opinion. And I will say that to anyone starting to get in the game. Everyone asks for a bit of advice and things. The thing you should do more than anything is watch as many races as you can and trust your own eye rather than what people tell you.